Meeting to order. We have a quorum of the board present. If we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we do roll call, I think it would be in order for us, in light of the tragedy that's happened in Madison to the Abundant Life School, that we have a moment of silence for those families that are devastated. Not only the families are devastated, but the entire school in that area. I'd like for it to go on the record, the honor that our school is sharing our condolences with that family, all those families there, and if we can send the conveyance from the school board as well to the school district. Thank you. Now we will have letter C, the roll call, please.
Catherine Solon. Angie Schreiber.
Here.
Dr. Bardo. Here. Bobby Braun. Jill Maddock Nelson.
Here.
Kristen Matt Miller.
Here.
Scott Peterson.
Here.
J.D. Schrader. Danny Pyatt.
Here. I'm going to wait just a second to let Dr. Bardo get fixed.
You can start.
I'm actually using that second to check something out here.
Of course you are.
They're already signed. They're all signed. I will in a minute. Okay. Item 2, citizens and delegations. Letter A, student representatives report. Yes.
Okay, Luke's at basketball practice, so he couldn't make it, but I'm here. So teachers sent out 158 positive postcards to students in the month of December for good grades. Students who were on high honors had ice cream sundaes at lunch. High honors students are 4.0 or higher GPA, and we served about 100 sundaes at lunch. Our CTE program decided to do Trail of Trees in their classrooms, which was a huge hit this year, and if you don't know what that is, they basically take Christmas trees and then their students decorate them. It's really fun. I got to decorate a couple. So, juniors and their parents had the opportunity to sign up for the ACT prep for the third quarter. There was a survey sent out to all the students that asked students for their input on next year's school calendar. Culinary students took third place in both chili cook-offs during the Christmas parade. Lakeside had funded all the ingredients for both chilies, so a huge thank you to Lakeside for that. $522 was raised for the Giving Tree towards Toys for Tots through our child CTE classes. So that's infant and child in careers. Student council had planned dress-up days and candy cane tasting this week to bring in the holiday spirit. And today was Plaid Day, which is why I'm in plaid. The CTE open house, it was a huge success. There were several community members there, and students spotlighted all sorts of things, including medals, work, cookie decorating, graphics, woodshop projects, ag, and media productions. We had between 1,400 and 1,700 attendees at the open house. Wow. They had a food truck and live music from Jason McNabb along the business booths to talk to our community members. And NHS is hosting a blood drive on January 3rd from 8 to 1 p.m.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board? Good job, thank you. Is there something more?
She needs to get back.
Oh, sure, you can go. Thank you for popping in to give that report. Letter B is recognition. We have a few people that we would like to recognize tonight. I want to read an email prior to this because we want to recognize all of our finance department. This came from our auditor, Leah. I will not say her last name because I'll butcher it if you'll say it for me, Kelly. Lukoski. Thank you. It says, hello, Kelly and Danny. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak at last night's committee meeting. I again want to thank Kelly, Ginger, and staff for their assistance with the audit. As auditors, when there is a significant finance turnover, we are very cautious and nervous about how the audit is going to go. Oftentimes, it doesn't go well, with an exclamation point. We are very happy to report that overall, the audit went smoothly, and as such, the audit was completed a full month prior to the DPI deadline. That's awesome, right? The district staff was very helpful and timely in response to our requests for information. There were no material adjustments proposed by us, and adjustments that were proposed were not numerous or of high values. It is a pleasure working with the district's finance staff, and we look forward to next year. Please continue to reach out with questions or thoughts before the next audit.
So tonight, we would also like to recognize Eva Edwards, Ginger Gruitt, and Deanna Shannon. We are honored to nominate them for their collective and outstanding contributions to the success of the business office. Together, they have demonstrated exceptional precision, leadership, and organizational skills, setting a standard of excellence that has positively impacted our district. Their teamwork and dedication were especially evident during this year's audit process. Despite the challenges of significant finance team turnover, they worked collaboratively to ensure the audit went smoothly, earning high praise from the auditors. Their unified efforts created a professional and efficient work environment that has been integral to the district's financial success. The outstanding results of the audit and the admiration of the external auditors are a testament to their shared dedication and hard work. Congratulations to Eva, Ginger, and Deanna for this well-deserved recognition. Your collective contributions have been invaluable, and your performance exemplifies the excellence we strive for in the Unified School District of Antigo. Please come forward, ladies, and Mr. Pyatt will present you with the certificate, and then we need a photo.
Ginger, congratulations. And great job on that hard work. Eva, great job on that hard work. And great job on that hard work.
Thank you all.
Come on the wall.
But before, I just want to say one thing before we go.
Yes, please.
Could I say something?
Oh, sure.
I get nervous, so I wrote this down. But I want to thank you all for the recognition. It means so much. It was a tough year, and I feel we got through it with success because of the support of the board and the support of the administration, allowing us to get the training we need, utilize the resources we needed, and encouragement throughout it all. It was not pretty at times. It was a bit messy, but we got through it all because you all supported us, and our outcome was successful because of that. So kudos to all of you as well, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
But on behalf of Ginger, myself, and Eva, we couldn't have done this all without our fearless leader in the business office and services. So we thank you for your leadership and dedication and support during that time, because without you, without your keeping us grounded, some of us would have lost our minds sometimes, but that's okay. We appreciate you. So this is our way of saying thank you for you, for everything.
Maybe they can't figure out a way to print money, right?
That's for sure. Government at the federal level takes care of that.
Yeah. Just keep it right there.
So once again, great job to the finance department. It was a daunting task, but you did it. Letter C, public comment. Do we have anybody signed up?
No, we do not.
No? Number 3, consent agenda. Approval of agenda, minutes, financial reports, report of district new hires, district retirement, and resignation report. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the agenda minutes from the November 18, 2024 Board of Education meeting, minutes from December 5th, 2024 Board of Education minutes, minutes from the December 9th, 2024 HR Finance, Building and Grounds and Curriculum Instruction Committee meetings, district retirement and resignation report, report of district new hires, financial reports for November 2024, consideration of current bills, checks number 8492 through 8554 in the amount of $155,998.86. ACH's numbers 242500554 through 242500702 in the amount of $805,501.85, and wire transfers in the amount of $176,397.10 for a total of $741,332.78.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Any discussion of the item on the floor?
I need to abstain from ACH's 242500577 and 242500648.
I'm so sorry, can you repeat that again?
242500577, 242500648.
Thank you.
Any other discussion of the motion on the floor? All right, hearing no other further questions, the voting device is now open. And also let it be noted that JD showed up at 6:15. Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4, administration reports. I will turn this part of the meeting over to our district administrator, Mrs. Oginski.
The first report is the Director of Business Services. The report is attached, and Mrs. Fosbender is present if anyone has questions. The Director of Pupil Services and Special Education report is attached, and Mrs. Wagner is here if anyone has questions. The Director of Buildings and Grounds report is attached, and Mr. Leiterman is present if anyone has questions. The Director of Technology report is attached, and we have Ms. Mushak available through Google Hangout if anyone has questions.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to comment and share appreciation in, and of course I don't have it right in front of me, but the fees for damages I know that that's something that historically our district hasn't done well with collecting the fees, and then it's years and it keeps accumulating, but it doesn't really seem to have an effect because there's not an exchange, or, you know, that payment's not made. So I appreciate that there is acknowledgement of that and movement forward with it.
Thank you. And I know Mrs. Mushak thanks you as well. Next, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction report is attached, and Ms. Stutzriem is present if anyone has questions. Next is the Superintendent report. The thing that I have spent a majority of my time on is we are meeting routinely with Blue Design Group with design planning for the new elementary school. In January, we plan to meet with teachers to talk about their classrooms and locations for the built-in cabinetry. Once everything is designed, we'll then be able to get renderings of the building so that we can share that out with the public so that there is a clear depiction of what the building will look like once it's constructed. We'll continue to update the community every step of the way on the new build, as well as critical maintenance upgrades at the middle and high school. Just a reminder also of an item to be agendized in the future is the existing elementary schools. And for you all to think about, will we have a task force, and at what point we want to put that on an agenda to have discussion. We also need to agendize the naming of the new elementary schools so that the decision is made in plenty of time for signage design, because that will be part of the process as well. So the sooner we can have a decision around that and discuss it, the better. Also, we invite everyone to attend our holiday concerts being held this week. Tonight at 7 in the high school band will perform. Tomorrow night, the high school choir will perform in Vaughan Theater starting at 7. On Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 1 p.m., East, North, and West will perform their holiday concerts in that same order. All elementary performances will also be held in the Vaughan Theater. And on Thursday at 6:30 p.m., the Antigo Middle School Band will perform at the middle school. And then the last bullet point is the Breakfast Club, and just a reminder that we will continue to do spots with Scott at the radio, and in January, we intend to get back on track with following up, Danny and I, after the board meetings to do a recap of the board meetings. And I think this Friday, Ms. Stutzriem and I will be going to discuss student achievement for the breakfast show on Friday. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, item 5, board action, letter A, audit report. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the audit as presented.
Motion has been made by Angie. Would you like to speak to your motion?
No.
Are there any questions of the motion on the floor? Any questions or discussion of the motion on the floor? Once again, we heard in committee how well that our finance team put together the information for Leah and the auditors, so we say hats off to them. No other questions or discussion of the motion on the floor. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter B, renew boys hockey co-op with Wittenberg-Burnhamwood. I will be looking for a motion.
I move the board approve the renewal of the WIA Boys Hockey Co-op Agreement with Wittenberg-Burnhamwood for the 25-26 and 26-27 school years.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I was interested to hear a little bit more, but okay, then I will ask. Could you share a little bit about the budget fiscal impact and how a co-op works? I know it's in front
Sure.
of me, but can you just go through that a little bit?
Yeah, so our specific co-op agreements state that after the sport is done, we will add up all of the expenses and divide by the number of players, and then bill for what that specific player cost. So right now we have I believe, a senior and a freshman coming from Wittenberg Burnham Wood. So then they would get billed for that. And then it's up to that school to decide what they're paying or what the family's paying. They kind of work that out on their end of that.
Okay.
So really, there's no burden to us financially on co-oping with somebody.
Just, we're not on the next one, but the next one looked a bit different with the numbers, so then I was curious. Not, well, I shouldn't speak. I'm done now.
Okay.
That's all I had, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments of the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing no questions or comments of the motion on the floor, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And that motion carries. Letter C, renew girls hockey co-op with Northland Pines. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the renewal of the WIA Girls Hockey Co-op Agreement with Northern Pines for the 25-26 and 26-27 school years.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. So, the girls just has the mileage reimbursement. That's what was different between the two, so then I was curious, which was what my question was in the previous agenda item. Nothing here.
Okay.
Right. So it looks like on the other one, we make money, and on this one, we pay.
Because
Yes.
we are co-oping with Northland Pines and
Correct.
Whitmer is co-oping with us.
So our girls are going to Pines.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So they're very dedicated. That's impressive to make that drive
Yeah.
often.
I believe right now we have 3, and I believe we have some coming up in youth. So,
Yes.
Did we used to do that with Rylander?
It wasn't, was it Rhinelander or was it Eagle River?
I think it was Eagle River, and then I think everybody ended up
Jake's.
co-oping together.
It was Tomahawk, Rhinelander, and Eagle, and they co-opted under, what was their?
Northland Edge.
Northern Edge.
Northern Edge, yeah.
Yeah.
The three schools combined could not get enough to make a team, leaving them to disperse and go to the nearest girls' team.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the motion on the floor? Okay, the voting device is now open. Try it again, JD.
Having a hard time today.
Would anyone like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Item D, RVA 5-year commitment renewal for Antigo. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the RBA 5-year commitment renewal for the Unified School District of Antigo.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
If my computer would load, I would. I just wanted to reference, maybe for those watching, a why question of why we would have a partnership with RBA when we talk about enrollments out or in or those kind of things. Unfortunately, I can't get this to load, but should we decide not to move forward with this, then those students would enroll in the next closest district, which is
It would be
Medford. So without continuing with the partnership with RBA, then we would lose those students who would then become Medford students, and we'd open enroll them out to Medford. So I just wanted to note that because we talk a lot about open enrollment in and out, and why the partnership would be helpful in that capacity.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other discussion or questions or comments of the motion on the floor? Yes, ma'am. Kristen?
Is this something that we're looking into, to having our own RVA program?
Yes, we have talked about it, and we have to get to a point where we can focus and be very intentional on that. But we all agree, as far as administration, high school administration, middle school, that this is something that in the very near future, we have to be very intentional about, because we need to offer some type of virtual learning so we can bring those kids back to be just our students and not have to share those dollars with other districts.
So then my follow-up question is, based on what I read, it has to be 5 years, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
What happens if we get a program before that? Can we break it? What does it cost to break that?
Before we brought this to the board, we did have Davis look at it and review it to make sure there was nothing with regard to a liability to the district. And because there was some language in there that Kelly and I were concerned about, and he said it was pretty straightforward that there would be virtually no risk. But I think it would take at least 3 years to get something like that planned out and then get the staffing to support it, and possibly even more, because it's not just, all of a sudden, yes, we're gonna offer this virtual option. I know Trina has some connections with someone who started a virtual learning opportunity in their district that she was going to connect us with so that we could learn from them as well, some of the things that worked well, and then some of the mistakes that they made along the way as well. But yes, we have a great need for this. But no, I don't think there's any kind of hindrance to us if we needed to break the contract.
Thank you.
This may be something that Amy could bring on the committee level and just keep us updated as to progress as to how this is going throughout the years. Any other questions or comments? Hearing no questions or comments, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Item E, resolution awarding the sale of $14 million general obligation school building and facility improvement bonds, Series 2024. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the resolution awarding the sale of $14 million in general obligation school building and facility improvement bonds, Series 2024, as presented.
Motion has been made by Dr. Bardo. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I thought the explanation within the document that we've received makes it apparent that we need to do this.
Is there any discussion of the motion that you have before you on the floor, or any questions?
This attachment is available to the public also within the agenda, just because the referendum was a huge task and very focused on community and outreach. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that the attachment that Dr. Bardo just referenced is available for the public as well.
I almost said 10-4.
Over and out.
Over and out. Any other questions or comments?
So
JD?
every time we do it, it's gonna be 14 million?
No.
Okay, so explain the cap thing or whatever this is talking about.
First off, congratulations on the successful referendum. It's a pleasure to be back. To answer your question, so the 14 million, there's a couple of reasons why that dollar amount was chosen. Number one, we don't have all the information needed to figure out the cadence of borrowing for the remaining 40 million. But when you set a levy in November ahead of issuing debt, we need to have a reasonable expectation that you're going to use that levy for its intended purpose, which is repaying the debt. And so in order to have a debt payment in 25, we needed to get you guys into the market and sell the first issuance prior to the end of the calendar year. So 14 million is a very important threshold because there's a cap at 15 million that when we issue on a calendar year in aggregate, so if there was 2 issues, they'd have to be split up. They can't exceed in aggregate or total over 15 million. When we do that, the proceeds from that borrowing, in this case 14 million, when they're received by the school district, are not subject to what's called arbitrage, meaning the district can invest those dollars and earn infinite, so to speak. You will not, because you're going to be spending them over time, but you're not capped and subject to having to provide some of those earnings back to the federal government. So there's a strategy of retaining those for the school district to allow for the project to continue to build and actually do more, hedge against construction inflation, provide opportunities to do things a little bit different and nicer than maybe originally intended with the 54 million. So it is a really good value add for the school district long term. So then the future issuances, once we receive what's called a drawdown, a month-by-month expense report projection from the architect and the construction company, then we'll know a little bit better when the next borrowing and the amount and all of those types of things can be brought forward.
How hard is it to sell them? So, you know,
From what
we
vantage-
issue them, I don't know, I mean, is it easy? Is, like, who does the auction?
There's a lot of work that goes into it. So Kelly and Glenda were part of a rating call. We have to put a lot of documentation together, because when someone out and an underwriter is going to find investors to loan 14 million, they need to understand what's going on from many vantage points. Not only the financial picture of the district, but also of the overarching community, county, overlying taxing jurisdictions, all of that stuff needs to be gathered. So all of that work has been done, and then this morning at 10 a.m., we use a platform called Parity, which is pretty much the gold standard for what's called a competitive sale. We post that a week ahead of time, so underwriters across the world know they can look at all the documentation, see the credit quality, all of the things necessary, and then we receive bids, and they're due at 10 a.m. today. So when we did that, we received 6 respondents, which is great. Normally between 4 and 6 is what we see in the market. Sometimes we get more, sometimes we get less, but towards the end of the year, which we are getting there, a lot of people shut it down at the end of the year, so we're very pleased with the results. So is it a lot of work? Absolutely. But, you know, it all comes to fruition on that one point in time when they have to submit that bid. They can't change it, and then we evaluate it for the lowest cost.
Are there any other questions of the motion on the floor? Okay, then the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. It's a pleasure having you back. Letter F, 10-year capital improvement plan. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the 10-year capital improvement plan as presented.
Motion has been made by Angie. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Just that we discussed this in the Building and Grounds Committee, and that's it.
Okay. Are there any discussion? Is there any discussion of the motion on the floor? Jill?
I don't like to repeat things that were discussed in committee, but I'm gonna break that rule and ask Jake to speak on it, because again, this is a big talking point of our referendum and the capital improvement needs of the district. So I'd like Jake to speak on this year's capital improvement plan versus previous years, because it looks different. So I'm gonna hand it off to Jake, and if you could just give an overview.
So if you remember when we looked at what amount we wanted to go to referendum for, we had 3 different options, the 46, 54, and 61 or 2, I believe, I forget which one it was. And we ultimately chose to go with the 54 million. The difference between that 54 million and the 62 million were still items that needed to be addressed as far as capital improvement projects that were basically deferred maintenance items, both at the high school and the middle school. So that portion of the 10-year capital plan and the maintenance needs still exist. So that is basically what this current 10-year capital plan reflects, the biggest of which being the HVAC at the high school. I believe that's about $4.5 million. As we get through the referendum work, we will try and get as much bang for our buck. There's little items that are always lingering in the back of my head that I try to get creative and find ways to add into projects that are within the scope of the referendum. One example would be replacing ceiling tile at the middle school. When you look at what that costs per square foot, it's like $6 per square foot. It's a 160,000 square foot building. Obviously not all of it has ceiling tile, but that can add up in a quick hurry. If we're putting new HVAC system in, there's a potential that the contractors will have to remove that ceiling or lower that ceiling as part of their scope to get the new equipment in. In that case, hopefully I can get free ceiling tile. that reduces what we need to plan for in the future. So I will try to do that as much as we can, as always, as we go through. But once that referendum work gets done, and that's kind of put to bed and over with, then I will become much more granular with this report, so we can really see all those little items such as ceiling tile or things of that nature. But at this point, it's just too many unknowns to be able to get that granular right now. So these are very high dollar items, with the exception of a couple that I do have slated for this summer's work, such as refinishing the gym floor at the high school. That needs to be sanded down. We talked about that for the past 2 years, so I intend to do that this year. But other than that, get the referendum work done, and then we'll break it down from there.
So you wait to spend the Fund 46 money until the referendum work is more done-ish, or not really?
If there's anything that would overlap, like the gym floor, I know that none of the scope of the referendum work is going to overlap where I could include that. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. It's been well past life expectancy, and it's been needing to be done for the last couple of years, so we're gonna move forward with that. Anything that may overlap with referendum work, we're gonna wait on and try to get the best bang for our buck, or say if there's a contractor coming in to replace, carpet in this room, because that was part of the referendum, but I need carpet in the next room as well, and that wasn't the part of the referendum scope. Since they're on site, I could probably get a better price than if I brought them independently. So I'll always try to find that value where I can, so that will adjust as we go through it. Did I answer your question?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions while Jake is at the podium? All right, thank you, Jake. Hearing no questions, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And the motion carries. Letter G, Alice, school safety drills. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board to approve the Alice safety drills as presented.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I would not, if Jake has anything to add, I'd offer him the opportunity, but I don't have anything.
Okay. Are there any questions of the motion on the floor or any other discussion? All right, hearing no questions or other discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter H, early graduation application. Applications. I will be looking for a motion.
Move the board approve early graduation request for the 24-25 year as presented.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
This was brought to committee, which is normal and customary, and then brought forth to the board.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion of the motion on the floor?
I'd just like to point out that the number of students is much higher than years past, which is a huge shout out to Trina Borneman and her dedication to improving our graduating programs.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, hearing no questions or discussion, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Letter I, Future Ready Library Plan. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the 2024 Future Ready Library Plan as presented.
Motion has been made by Kristen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
We had a wonderful presentation at committee, and so I think it was pretty much covered there.
I will piggyback on that. Mrs. Krieger did a great job. Thank you. I thought I saw you. Thank you so much for that presentation. Awesome work, awesome findings, lots of hard work ahead of you and your team. Any other questions or discussion of the motion on the floor?
I will
Jill?
also acknowledge Mrs. Krieger's hard work on putting that together. That was recognized during our committee meeting, and I'm told that you will not recognize yourself, and so we are going to do that for you because it has been a tall task and it is not done. There's plenty more work to do, but it's not overlooked and it's very much appreciated. So thank you for all you've done.
Can we just give Mrs. Krieger a hand for all of that hard work? It's a daunting task, but somebody's got to do it. All right, any other questions or discussion of the motion on the floor? Hearing no discussion or question, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? And the vote is now closed. And the motion passes. Thank you. Letter J, 4K program All Saints. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to refer this action item 4K program at All Saints back to the Finance Committee in January.
Motion is to refer, can you say that one more time, Dr. Bardo?
I move to refer the action item 4K program All Saints back to the Finance Committee in January.
I am moved to amend the motion to approve it for 2 more years.
Unfortunately, the referral takes precedence over a amendment, so we have to handle the referral first. And if it fails, then we can entertain your amendment to the motion.
Right, but they need to know an answer by the end of this month, Dave. Otherwise, they have to tell their families if they have to pay for it or not.
Well,
Wait just 1 second. Dr. Bartle, you can speak to your motion of referral at this time.
I would choose to give up my 5 minutes to Mrs. Ojenski.
Okay, Mrs. Ojenski?
So I would, well, I guess I have a question. Are you certain that they have to know? Because it was much later than this last year when we brought this forward. But I would like for us to push it off until next month because we have some calls into DPI with questions around this, and they have not returned our calls yet, so that we can make sure that what we are doing is accurate, because there are things with licensure that are involved that we were not aware of.
What do you mean? But like by license?
I can't speak more specifically without it being identifiable, but there are regards to licensure involved as well.
I just thought Paul said he needed to know by the beginning of January.
Hold just 1 second. We have to speak to the motion of referring this back, and I know we're in that boundary right now. Just keep that in motion as we're discussing.
I thought the conversation at committee was that he would like to know by open house, which is in January, but I didn't think there was a need, it was a want. That was my understanding.
Kristen, did you say that he would like to know?
He would like to know by
for
the open house, which is, don't quote me, the second to last or last week in January. It's,
So we still have time.
Correct. Deanna, did you get that motion exactly? Okay. Because I'm going to ask you to read that in just a moment.
So just to go back to our contract with All Saints around the 4K program, it does state that annually this agreement shall automatically be renewed for the next school year unless either party notifies the other party in writing by March 1st of the current school year of its desire to terminate this agreement or negotiate changes, so till March 1st. Last year, we didn't start enrollment for All Saints, the 4K program, till February. We did that alongside our Anago enrollment process with the online process. But based on this, I believe we have till March 1st to either keep the, and renew the contract or make any changes at that time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion of the motion on the floor?
Are all our 4K teachers currently licensed?
Again, I don't think we can discuss that in open without it being specific, because we're talking about a particular grade level, and we only have 5, 6. It's 5.
Their open house is January 26th.
So when is our monthly meeting?
Before that.
It's usually early January. Wait, I can tell you. Hold on.
21st.
20th.
January 20th is our meeting.
Is that the board meeting, though?
Yes.
13th for the committee meeting.
Yeah, the committee is 13th.
I'm out of town, but that doesn't matter that much.
You're out of town for the committee, JD?
No, for the monthly.
Deanna, I'm going to have you to read that motion one more time to the board.
Okay. I motion to refer the action item of the 4K program All Saints back to the Finance Committee in January.
Okay. Motion has been read. Any other discussion of the motion?
I just want to point out one more thing. At committee, the majority of our questions did revolve around the financial impact it had on the district. That there were numerous questions at committee about that.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I will comment briefly too, that it did center on the financial impact and getting that information. I've had a lot of follow-up conversation with finance, with curriculum and instruction, and with Mr. Gluska as well. And then I rewatched the meeting from last year, which was, I think, like a 35-minute, pretty thorough discussion. That also centered on the financial impact, as well as the contract from a half day to a full day, that was last year, and then available space in district. So I guess it would make sense to send it to the finance committee. I would have liked to have had an outcome tonight for their behalf and their collaboration, but it makes sense to do that, to really look at the cost the district would receive that year and then moving forward.
Yep. We too were hopeful that DPI would have returned calls. I know Kelly reached out a couple of different times to get some answers around the financing piece as well.
I'll further state that in committee, there was not discussion, correct me if I'm wrong, my committee members, but not discussion of any negativity towards that partnership, but more so the questions on the financial impact to the district and being good stewards financially within our role as board members.
Right, because our understanding was we make $100,000 offering the program, at least on the instruction committee. We weren't the finance committee though, so maybe we were just wrong.
Go ahead.
The recommended motion we made to bring to the board is not the recommended motion that is on the agenda. I think that's worth noting.
The reason for that, Kristen, I had a question about that and reached out. I had Glenda reach out to Davis and Dean. The motion that is printed on the topic summary sheet is always the motion that comes to the board. And then the motion that comes out of committee, it's up to one of the committee members to bring that motion at the meeting and in the form of an amendment. I didn't learn that until just today.
So what's the point of even making the motions at committee then? That's really weird.
It's a motion to move it to the committee, because if the committee didn't move it to the board, then it wouldn't have been here tonight, regardless of what the motion is.
So if I didn't want to do it, we just make no motion instead of making a different?
No, because then it wouldn't come to the board. You need to motion something for it to come to the board, from what I understand, correct me?
That's correct.
You're telling, that's in Robert's rules. If you make a different motion, the other motion still comes?
I will have to say, I did not do the research on that. I'm trusting our attorneys
Will you ask him to
for that
send us
answer.
that? If he did the research, I'd be happy to read that.
Ask him to do what?
However he researched that if you make a motion at a committee, the other motion still comes, even though it passed 3-0 to continue the program. And then the opposite motion came to the board. That seems not right.
It's very confusing because I wasn't sure what we needed to do.
It is confusing, however, just like we have all the motions printed in front of us, it doesn't mean that we have to follow those motions as a board. We can make our own motions. Those are just suggested from administration for us to read to help us to form those words.
Which is a good point.
Yes.
As well, that admin brought it to committee per the board's discussion, full board discussion last year on April 23rd, I think it was, to bring it back to the board this year for discussion, so it would go to committee. And JDL also shared too, in looking at the verifying again in our minutes, it shows what the motion was in committee, so there's record of that, even though the motion on the
Correct.
on the sheet might be different.
I agree with JD, it seems kind of sketchy to me. The optics of that does not look good.
Well, this is actually the first time that I'm aware of that we've run into this, to be totally open here.
Yeah, because it gives the optics that the committee is saying that this is the motion coming from the committee.
And when I saw that today, that's when I reached out to Deanna and Glenda, and I said, that motion is not correct. You can get an open records request from my email and find that out in that email. And then that's what was responded back to me, is that Davis and Dean was contacted about that very subject. But I did not do the research personally. I didn't have time to today. Any other questions or discussion of the motion on the floor? Do we need the motion read back to us one time? Scott, we will have the motion read. Deanna?
I motion to refer the action item of the 4K program, All Saints, back to the Finance Committee in January. Sorry, I was trying to read my writing.
Okay, the motion is there. The voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. And the motion carries with all but one in favor of referring this back to the Finance Committee. Letter K, report of donations. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the following donations: $4,000 from Community Benefit Program Aspires Health for Raise Your Voice Program, $500 from Couts Excavating for West Elementary School, and $1,000 from Antigo FFA Alumni Association for the AHS Skills USA program.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you for the generous donations from our community to our district. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing no discussion or comments, the voting device is now open. Would anyone like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Thank you to a generous community that we have. Item number 6, adjournment. I will be entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion is made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion? All in favor of adjournment, let it be known by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. It's carried. We are now adjourned.